Hello, 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 hello to everybody who's coming in. Thanks for joining us today. This is the Brooklyn Rails Wednesday afternoon reading series. This is the 88th Wednesday reading and the 572nd episode of the new social environment overall, which are mind-boggling numbers to me if you know anything about this endeavor. We're really fortunate today to have a reading organized by Miriam Pariscar. And Miriam has invited a bunch of terrific writers to read today, including Lupe Mendez, J.D. Plucker, Aliah, Lavonne, Tigh, and Irene Vazquez. Miriam will read first, and we'll introduce her in just a second. But first, just quickly want to say, pay attention to the chat as you can while the reading's taking place. There'll be links to the many works and endeavors that our readers are involved with at the moment, and other information about the Brooklyn Rail. My name's Anselm Berrigan. I'm the editor of the poetry section. There's a new issue out today, and the poetry section features work by Nikki Walschlager, Dow Strom, Stephanie Adams Santos, Joe Elliott, and a number of other folks. So you can give that a look online if you get the chance. And I think we're ready to start. Are we ready to start? Yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay. My brain is still wilted from yesterday. Miriam Pariscar was born into a Salvadoran family and Iranian family in Southwest Houston, Texas. She's a poet, interdisciplinary scholar, and teacher. Her chapbooks include Somewhere Else the Sun is Falling into Someone's Eyes from the Belladonna Collaborative, As for the Future from the Portable Press at Yo-Yo Labs, and Pull, a ballad published by the Operating System. She's a doctoral candidate at Yale University, a member of Canto Mundo, and a member of Tierra Narrative. With Oscar Moises Diaz, she represented Tierra Narrative as a curatorial fellow at the Poetry Project in the spring of 2021. Please welcome Miriam. And Miriam, thank you for putting this together.
Thank you so much, Anselm, for the invitation to do this. Thank you, Fong, Carolyn, Nick, Raven, Eleanor, and the whole Brooklyn Rail team for making this possible. It always takes many more people than it seems on the surface. Thank you to everybody for being here. I'm just going to share a few brief remarks. Every reader on this reading is from Houston, Texas, which is the city I grew up in and still call home, even though I've been on the East Coast for, gosh, a long time now, close to 2 decades. But, you know, it's still home. It's where my family is. It's where I grew up. It's where my poetry constantly comes back to. And as I said in a message to friends recently, the brilliance of these poets is not just in their talent, but they really do offer light in a state that, you know, often breaks the heart. But there's so much brightness there, and really these people are among that. It's not lost on me that this reading comes on the heels of the horror that we saw in Uvalde last week, less than 300 miles from Houston, and especially following on the heels of the horror in Buffalo. And so for that, I do just want to offer a moment's pause for that before I move on. So thank you again for being here. Thank you, Aliah, Irene, JD, and Lupe for being willing to join me here. I admire each of you so much, and for what you offer us in language especially, but also as people. So thank you, really. I will read 2 pieces of mine. The first is called Bayou Time. Bayou time. 1. Aspirations round the cul-de-sac where, having wanted a quiet life, families make peace with brutal settlements, becoming Roman, that is Texan. Below the footbridge, a childhood precedent revives itself among the turtles, swallowing mosquitoes, drops of their peculiar blood doing nothing. The deliberation of water having been missed in spite of possession of the qualities of man. A propensity toward stopgap for the flood tides. Bayou time is slow time, not empty of watershed threat, slow like summer on the precipice of hurricane season. So much time thought of being looked at, having forgotten to look. Deliberate as the bath streams swallowed by house pipes, profane residues of the civilized, body hair, polymer beadlets, sweat-tinged foam, slow to gather at their mouths. 2. Empire holds fast to the ones who love you, so they try to love you in empire. Affection nested in workweek intervals, groceries, discount retail, drug prescriptions, discards in the bayou, rust blood carmine gathered upon the body of a shopping cart. Who named this mundane grief excess? Who named this sensation void? Outside the economy, I uproot the wilds, chew for the pungency of a small pleasure. 3. After the flood, the city keeps open its reservoir wounds. An island of trees runs through its vein, engulfed with the chatter of grackles. Their chatter ends the governance reigning upon the structure, the assigned names premised on its sediment. Herons swell in presence among the abandonments of production. They stay in the branches, loom with elegance, iridescent airs of being unmastered. So that's a fairly recent poem, though it has taken me a couple of years to write it, really out of the desire for slowness, in times when everything just moves so quickly. And so the second piece is a prose piece that is still in the works. It's called Phosphine. And I explain what phosphine is in the first sentence of the piece. I remember learning if I closed my eyes and rubbed them with my fists, I could summon little flecks of light in light's absence, my own secret falling field of stars. I would revel in that disappearance into the shine of not quite nothing. I looked for it through the skylight in the backseat of my mother's car in a recurring dream. No one behind the wheel as it traveled down Sinai, approaching Westheimer, the route that took us from outside the loop to anywhere in the city's interior, past the convenience store and the billiards bar. In the other direction, the shopping center with the panaderia my mother frequented until the diabetes diagnosis, and the dry cleaners owned by the Muslim family from Tanzania, whose teenage daughters sometimes babysat us in the back. No one tells you what memories of a place you will carry with you. On Sinai was the cow field that became a golf course that became condos, across the Dollar Theater still standing, where Jurassic Park made me scream at a movie for the first time. The little bank later taken up by a bigger bank, the decaying mall that seemed a world of thrill in the late 90s, my mother's frequented nail salon, the Best Buy still a Best Buy, the Barnes & Noble that became a gun shop near the public park with the shooting range, a park we rarely went to, later named for the president who waged the first Iraq War, the road to the Mexican restaurant where my mother worked, the luxury hotel where my father worked, the dream, a sleeping mirror of long drives from school to the parking lot where my parents would hand us off between their shifts. Through the roof was a persistent night sky, tinted blue by the glowing city, still full of stars to be made out, deceptively still in position. Sometimes I became afraid that I could not stop the star fields, which meant that I'd stay awake for hours. At other times, they'd visit me in places I did not want them. The cartoon nightmare with flashing stars that frightened me awake, yelling mis ojos to the babysitter, an older woman, my mother's friend, who had come with her from San Miguel in the 80s, not knowing how to translate fully to her exactly what I had seen. How could anyone tell you what you will carry? Strange memories and humiliations and all the ways you were socialized into someone else's idea of goodness. Difficult friendships in a white flight neighborhood, living in a house of someone else's foreclosure, where in the garage you'd find the things that they left behind. A shell-covered box with birthday cards and photographs of faded blonde children. 3 wooden figures in the garage from somewhere across the Atlantic, as though the previous owner left behind the things she thought had cursed her like a cracked foundation. For years, her name would haunt us in the mail on the catalogs of novelty gifts, luxury toys, many special offers. Because of inherited displacements, we came to live in her house until year by year, with the paint job and new mailbox and overrun vines, Slowly, we made it more and more ours while every nice white family on the block packed up and moved to Katy. Maria Frank should never have brought that seashell box into her home, I thought. I'd wipe the three figures with help when helping my mother dust the house, placing them on the mantle beside the scripted name of God. The seashell box, a time capsule to be buried somewhere in the yard, the specificity overridden by the mind to make room for future memory. How could I have imagined all the little details I'd retain, like looking at a clock, trying to understand its relationship to time? How my father would explain the relationship between its limbs, big hand, little hand, second hand, each making another move upon a full rotation across the wood slice space that hung over the dining room, learning the measure of time by watching each hand make its rotation to see if I could suspend such patience around the time one day became dusk, enough patience to watch every hand labor. Time as a round of numbers making repeated motions, the circle as unit around which all moves, the awareness that every day the hands would do as they always did, the small hand passing every number twice, the big hand 24 times, and the second hand 60 times until a battery gave way. There was the buzzing sound of the mechanical clock in my bedroom, a low buzz that would persist until I could no longer stand it in the middle of the night and unplugged it, bringing time to an abrupt halt so I could sleep. The second hand moving so loudly, so smoothly, reminding me of the arm of a swimmer moving through water. The clock on the wall of the A-Leaf natatorium where we learned how to swim every day one summer, playing Paula Cole's Where Have All the Cowboys Gone at the exact same time, maybe 11:40 a.m. The clock as a measure for waiting, learning how to wait, learning how to make waiting pass, learning when to go to school, my father in the lot always last to arrive. The sun brighter, then dimmer, then gone. The sun, the moon, the day as numbers, something I believe that I could someday possess. And with that, we'll go on to the next reader. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miriam. Our next reader is going to be Irene Vazquez. Irene is a Black Mexican-American poet, journalist, and editor. Graduated from Yale with a BA in ethnicity, race, and migration and English as part of the 2021 cohort of Mellon Mays Boucher Fellows. Recently, Irene was named a Winter-Spring 2022 Brooklyn Poets Fellow. Their works have appeared or are forthcoming in Muzzle, the Oxford American, and the Lickety Split, among others. Irene's debut chapbook, Take Me to the Water, is also forthcoming from Blue Books in the fall of this year. And mostly, Irene likes drinking coffee, impulse buying books, and reminding people that the South has something to say. Please welcome Irene Vazquez to the Rail.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for having me. Thank you, Miriam, for being a wonderful teacher through the years and poet in person and fellow Houstonian in Connecticut, which was much needed. Most all of these poems, I think, are going to be in my chapbook, which will be coming out later this fall. The first one is called The Black Shoals, and the title is taken from a book I highly recommend, The Black Shoals by Tiffany Lethabo King. I also wrote this poem for context as Hurricane Laura was getting ready to hit the coast of Louisiana, and we thought it was gonna hit Houston. Black Shoals. Swallow me whole, O beast of the southern radar, patron of the disaster zone of the unsurvivable storm surge, O surveiller of our anxieties, of a drowning foretold. Here we are in another August of hot darkness, another storm ravaging the Black Shoals, and I'm told the map isn't even accurate anymore. The coastline has eroded so much that Louisiana is no longer a boot shape, our shores more saltwater than Homestead, and I click through headlines on Twitter like it's all new. My lungs were declared a disaster zone long ago. My people have wandered and were lost refugees in their own country, their homes named uninhabitable long before the storm even hit. I've lived 15 years flinching at the slightest crack of thunder, but it is August. 3 months into a national uprising, 400+ years into a people's apocalypse, 20 days after a man was shot in the back 7 times in Wisconsin, I'm tired of telling people that these are natural disasters. 3 years ago, When the last storm hit, I might have told you that every 500 years, someone must bear the sins of a people, but in the years since my hands first began to shake, I've learned who and what and where is responsible, and as the storm spins in the radar, I watch colonization unfold in real time. Man-made climate change spins whiteness into stacks of cumulonimbus. As the eye of the storm intensifies with each degree stacked in the Gulf, each tick moves upward on the stock exchange. Tell me, someone didn't dream up this deluge, this clearing of land, uninhabitable, contaminated. Tell me who has the right to remain. Tell me without flinching that my life matters. Truth be told, the storm isn't even the half of it. Ain't nothing new about our lands declared uninhabitable, cleared for industrial use, for flume and flare, for fire and brimstone. This place, the only one where we were allowed to reside, refineries, petrochemical infestations have taken hold in our homelands. In the days before natural disaster, they unleashed one man-made all on their own. Here, our bodies marked in yellow tape, uninhabitable, flooding the lungs of our communities with the smoke from their stacks. Oh, Our Lady of Perpetual Fever Dreams, our asphalt sovereign, mother of ozone action days and asthmatic breath. Behold how the men have partitioned our city, sliced and diced until all that is left is to worry and wait. We were never meant to survive. And ain't that some shit? Ain't that something holy in all this mud bound? Ain't that some Black life? For still, I sit here loving you, blessed city of perpetual rain cloud. We who have kept on keeping on, pressing toward the mark. We brought here to these Black Shoals long before the storms came. We who will keep the land long after our captors are gone. This next poem is called Heaven is a Muddy River. Title comes from a song by Yeba called Evergreen, and I wrote it for my grandma. Mama stopped drinking the water after Daddy passed. She gets it delivered now, Ozarka in big jugs. She was given a truth, an insurance check, turned it over and over, and the nights unmoving like a precious relic, like a polished stone. States away, I still sleepwalk to the riverbank, beg to relive even the barest mornings, the time catching trout. Cassie snagged my arm with her fish hook, harvesting the June tomatoes, his steamboat laugh, even the nights I'd hear him praying for a son. My daughter only knows his charcoal outline, the rubbings of a grave. I tell her stories of how she was born, sculpted from stardust and red clay. In the dream, undone promises fog up the marshland and the rivers frozen over as though I'm ready to forgive. I know it's just as hard in heaven, but I still want to swim. This next poem is called When I Die. Before rigor mortis sets in, wing my eyeliner with the oil slick of your overflowing greed, halo my braids with the oysters you drove from the Gulf, rouge my lips with the red tide of the algae blooms, hem my dress with the levees of broken promises, let the skirt shimmer brown and delta blue, let the neckline sink deeper as the coast erodes, lace my Doc Martens one last time. Slink towards my skeletal rapture, my sunken hum, come with me as I repack the canals, catwalk down the dredged wetlands, my discontent, my body rises from the dirt because the cemetery has flooded yet again. You will learn that I was once a bride married to amazement and now spurned. I'm coming for blood. Leaving a trail of sewage behind me, you will know where to find me. You'll remember exactly what kind of bitch you messed with because I will not leave here. Slapping my brother on the back and saying, heck of a job, I will not.
Literal mic drop.
Oh no. You guys hear me? Okay, great. I wrote this next poem for my partner, Kieran. It's called Freehanding Maps of the Gulf. If I'm being honest, yes, I want you to love me. But my skin doesn't know how to breathe here. I forget I'm near the ocean until I hear the seagulls wail. I've been loved by a people who call you baby at first glance. I was born in the kind of history that smacks you in the face. Come springtime, pollen descends on the windshields and doorknobs. These days, not even winter can stop disaster. I'm so tired of loving her from other stars. Baby, here is what I have to offer you. The high watermark in the yellow house, the shutter that opens wonky after it flew off in 2017, the sweat stains in all my clothes that won't wash out. Could you love it? Could you learn to? Because I've seen the moon rise over the bayou. There is only one place for me to go. This last poem is a favorite of mine. It's called Hot House, or The Taking Back of Provision Routes. I don't mean to alarm you, but we are not alone in our bodies. I don't mean to erase your agency, but we are less bodies than botanical gardens, less individuals than a collection of holy sacraments. What I mean is, I recently found out that there are trillions of microorganisms in the gut alone, bacteria, viruses, and fungi, more than the number of human cells in the entire body. I mean, I always had a sneaking suspicion we exceeded this anatomy, sustained by something simpler and perhaps closer to God, something more ancient that knows no name, something passed down more precious than property. So fuck off, Big Pharma. These is ours. We grew them ourselves, or rather made of the body a hothouse, gave them a place to go where they live collectively and rent-free. When I'm lonely in this pandemic existence we have begun to call a life, I imagine them all misfrizzled up in my digestive system on a magic school bus ride and the twists and turns of my intestine. I hope they laugh up in there and it makes me gassy. I hope they snort like my best friend Maddie. I hope they ring out when they've won an argument like Sid. I hope they throw groovy parties up in my gut like Caroline. In other words, I hope they like to boogie, engaging whatever kind of unicellular motion floats their little bacterial boat. As I write this poem, I imagine them nourished by my late afternoon snack or whatever leftovers I eat standing in my kitchen. And as long as I'm here, anthropomorphizing bacteria that are not aware I have a consciousness, let me just say, our microbiome has done more for us than any president ever has, which is to say, kept us alive on purpose. Dare I say that our bacteria know that race is a fiction, but they too have seen some shit go down in the provision grounds. They have known poison waters that preceded us, and they will be better prepared for whatever future that is to come. When I'm at my lowest, I hear them calling to me. Oh, our children of Texas silt, Delta babies unbought and unbossed, we wish you mud and muck. From your mothers we were formed, not born, but guiding you through your journey back to the earth, to the mud. One day we will return, both beyond and because of you. But here in the poem, we can be anything. So we synthesized vitamins and gave you rhythm, broke down simple carbohydrates and sent you moxie. We pushed and pulled you to the beat of our ancestors to give you this, the God body. So when we eat now, we eat sacrament. When we live now, we live garden. When we fuck and jump and sleep soundly in the night, we are bountiful. We are multiple. We are home. Thank you.
Thanks. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Irene. Our next reader is going to be Lupe Mendez, who's originally from Galveston, Texas, and is the author of Why I Am Like Tequila from Willow Books, which was winner of the 2019 John A. Robertson Award for Best First Book of Poetry from the Texas Institute of Letters. He is the founder of Tintero Projects, which works with emerging Latinx writers and other writers of color within the Texas Gulf Coast region, with Houston as its hub. Lupe earned his Master of Fine Arts from the University of Texas at El Paso, and his work can be seen in print and online formats, including at the Kenyon Review, the Gulf Coast Journal, the Texas Review, the LA Review of Books, Split This Rock, Poetry Magazine, and Poem a Day from the Academy of American Poets. Lupe Mendez is also the 2022 Texas Poet Laureate, and I believe he's got a second audience going today because he's at work. Please welcome Lupe Mendez.
Buenas tardes, and thank you everybody for this opportunity. So 3 poems for the afternoon. 2 hail from a collection I'm putting out into the world right now and hoping soon somebody picks it up. This is rules at the Juan Marcos Huelga School, even the unspoken ones. This should be posted in every classroom until the end of the school year. 1, no more than one child out of the classroom at one time. They might run away. A monarch butterfly tugged in the direction of the wind. 2, the upstairs classes will not make excess noise because there are no walls between classes, and the noise carries downstairs too. Noise that needs to be made should flame out in a bonfire out on the roof where the sunlight can hear it all. 3, any mother coming into the classroom, send them to the principal's office unless they are teachers' helpers. They need to go to help the principal birth a school that can speak and spell the words revolución and work and hands and huelga. 4, no running in the hallways or stairways. Wait for nighttime, children, where you can run and race around in the dark, in the cool of the trees, yelling you caught a star on the tip of your tongue. Then you realize you ran around till morning, and it is the dew on the tips of tree leaves you taste. 5, no screaming or shouting in the classrooms, hallways, or stairways. Shout on paper. Write boldly in a book, in the middle of an open field, in the street, in the classroom. Make sure your voice shrills. 6, no throwing of paper or trash on the floor. In my class, I will teach you to throw Molotov cocktails, bright orange ones that whistle in the air. And when they smash on those crazy school walls, they will burst in a bright yellow, the scent of lemon, burnt wood that will take over for a few days. 7, no one can go to Papa Burger. In the future, the streets are still the same. And in December, on a Tuesday afternoon in 2016, one of your descendientes will be stabbed merely for standing in the day. The North Side knows scar, knows body, when it needs to more. 8, if you take your class to the park, be sure that everyone crosses the street going and coming, moving in packs, march the streets together, keep the body flickering, make the voice resist, quiet. This going, this coming is resistance. 9, all shirts will be buttoned. This is how we mean business. You come to school bien fino, and we will teach you the 4 winds. The reason we are always armed to the touch of a blade, we are always blades, bien filosos. 10, be sure that your classroom is reasonably clean before you let the class out at the end of the day. One day, all of these classrooms will no longer hold any of us. Leave no evidence we were here. We exist in the whisper, the tender cinnamon strings of muscle. Marcha, ya. This next poem, this whole series, this collection is based on the history of desegregation here in Houston, which occurred late because some southern spaces decided to do things, of course, in their own way, and Texas being what it is, decided to desegregate in 1970. And so the pushback became that the district, the board decided that white students and black students would be paired in schools and be bused. But the white students that were selected were not white, they were Mexican. And because things are as precarious as they still are today, that allowed for no single white student to be included in the actual original desegregation plan, and Mexican students were used as pawns. And what it did was create more tension between 2 communities that were already having to fight for scraps of support and resources. And so this is a second poem along those lines. Que batalla? The epigraph. While some maintained that they boycotted schools to protest the HISD's racism, others aired their own racist statements. From fighting their own battles, Mexican Americans, African Americans, and the struggle for civil rights in Texas, page 216. The poem. ¿Y dónde aprendiste eso? No me digas, ya sé. Viene de tu casa, bien bonito, que se te escucha tanta palabra sucia. No se te pudren los dientes de tanta palabra que florezca de tu boca. Let us air out what's in the books. One student said he would not attend his HISD paired school because he wants to avoid being with Blacks. Or this one. The Blacks don't like to go to school with Mexicans. The Mexicans don't like to go to school with Blacks. And the white people don't like to go with either one. Or esta. At a poverty center, several African-American youth had thrown rocks at Mexican kids. The Chicanos wanted to meet with Black leaders, but they refused. The city, its white lines, did this to you. You were told to stand still, be some seed, grow in the cracks. This is all you have left, the room you got. You were all fighting for the crooked streets. Those streets aren't the same anymore. And I know we all got them in our roots, us, a voice in us, around us, somebody with a nana or an abuelito speaking old hate up in the weeds around our children. Que herencia. Deberíamos enredarnos el uno con el otro, hasta con las espinas por afuera. La carne tierna nunca olvida. We could press ourselves in the pages, or leaf in the wind a bit, be a garden deep, colors dig in the ground together, juntos. Pero hay que hacerlo pronto. We will all be there eventually, sharing the dirt, a tumba, as we have for hundreds of years. It is time to look up, bring flowers to more than graves. We cannot afford to be thistles overlooked. Don't wither. A Black student once brought me flowers on Father's Day. I asked, mijo, ¿y por qué? And he said, my mama said the only time we give men flowers is on the day they die. I wanted to change this. He is a seed and a mouth full of blooming. This is the season para ver esa arbolada, esa huerta, that garden that lives in all of your eyes. So this last poem, touching on all the events that have occurred between Uvalde and in the last 4 years, even Santa Fe. I wrote this poem when I was still teaching high school, currently my curriculum. And I did not think I'd have to speak this poem out, but here we are again, in the same conversations, sadly. When I hear that they want to let teachers carry guns, one, a knuckle pops in my throat the moment a student, an 18-year-old, asks me, Maestro, would you take a bullet for me? And my classroom is an empty house as the words leave his mouth. My solar plexus caves. I say, mijo, I decided that the moment I bubbled in the first multiple choice question in my certification exam 18 years ago. I've been waiting for you to ask this question. I hope I pass this test. 2, Mr. Mendes has a class of 35 students in a temporary building facing the playground. The entrance to the playground is on the far corner. A man in a pea coat enters at the corner with a gun. An announcement breaks over the loudspeaker. Quote, Mr. Red is in the building, end quote. What should Mr. Mendes do? Question mark. A, tell all the children to hold their breaths. Think of air, of floating around in the sunlight. B, tell the kids to count the number of times they hear a footstep, a click, a bang, a body. C, tell them freeze exactly as you are. Grip this poem, a pulse across your temples. D, turn out the lights. Hide the children in the very books they picked up that last library visit. And 3, and someone says, quote, give the teachers guns, end quote. I stumble and shatter into slivers of voice box and wails. Mi salón es una casa. Do you want us to speak into an empty house? 4, when time comes, I will put all of you students in my pockets. When one doesn't fit, I will stitch another pocket on this one, dead center on my heart, and hope that if that's the one, that aims at me, that this is where we will be, that I am taken as I am. You see, the gun I want is in the shape of a book, its pages the only shell casings I need covering my floor. Mil gracias.
Thank you, Lupe. Our next reader is going to be J.D. Plucker. J.D. Plucker's undisciplinary work inhabits the intersections of writing, history, translation, art, interpreting, bookmaking, queer and trans aesthetics, non-normative poetics, language justice, and cross-border cultural production. They've translated numerous books from the Spanish, including Gore Capitalism, published by Semiotext in 2018, and forthcoming Trash by Sylvia Aguilar Zeleny from Deep Vellum Press. They're author of Ford Over, which was published by Noemi in 2016, and The Unsettlement's Dad. They previously worked as part of the transdisciplinary collaborative Antena AR, as well as the local social justice interpreting collective Antena Houston. JD has received the Warhol Arts Writing Grant and has exhibited work at Blaffer Art Museum, the Hammer, Project Row Houses, and elsewhere. Please welcome JD Plucker to the Rail Reading.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. I got so emotional. I'm already so emotional. I was emotional coming into it. I mean, I'm emotional every day. I'm a poet, but also it made me so emotional to see all of you and to hear your words. And I'm wasting time. And I just want to say thank you to Miriam for the generosity of receiving an invitation and then forwarding that invitation on to 4 other people. And I think it's a real example because none of our words exist in a vacuum. And the only way I feel like my work makes sense is with others. So thank you for that example, that model. And thank you to Brooklyn Rail and Carolyn and Anselm and all the people who helped to make this possible. I'm going to read 3 poems as well, one very short, one medium, and one long. And the first is from my chapbook, Swamp's Fly. This poem is also, yeah, that's all I'll say. What if thick woods cleared and drained, drench the abuses, puddles studded with striders, linger a shadow where moon once was? What if things unlivable? Please, stagnant water, speaks, susurrates, tambourine rattles like flat crack, trouble ground, despite and everything, to beneath bayou, to naming cargo, to chirp dying city, to hallowing the wasteland, not better than, not clean or marshes to be ever impure. To daughter, meltdown at the sign, insect bites, Zika, rat snakes, landed the steamer, lands the steamer, furnishes neighboring prairies ponded, a mess unraveled, transitioned, the water, senses the good, mud decorations, a city ever a green scummed lake. What alligator's spirit there? Is swamp to let in, and who wrote to do that? Drenched to the skin, oyster mound, parking lots, research settler eradication, dream the bayou, circular, womb-like, maternate. Now I'm gonna read one hookup poem that's from my chapbook Hooks, just because it feels heavy and there's so much heaviness, but we still need to connect and hook up. This one is called Hugo and the Moss. I wrote this some years back in a year when I read poems to people I hooked up with and then wrote poems out of that. Hugo and the Moss. after Emily Dickinson poem 1400. That's the poem that I read, Hugo and the Moth. Are you cut or uncut? The mosses in me, pre-programmed text, looking, maybe. You, LOL, into being afraid, and sometimes awkward, looking to suck, LOL, poppers. Wanna come over here? Arg. Another gentrified swath of townhomes, or Palmetto Palm Paradise, the door unlocked, moss in the air? I'm on my knees, waiting, come in, come over. It'll be a dream. My head on moss pillow, legs splayed in the air, you mossy, sperms legion and desired, we traffic sex, you insect. My infection traffics insects, my sex insect or mask. Do not appear afraid. Honestly, I'm into 470 million-year-old bryophytes. You're asexual anti-dick. The sweat drips off my glasses into your eyes. Blur the sperm and eggs, bleary neighbors. We emit volatile compounds all over the knees. Kneel to the ground, kneel townhome, kneel to pity that I know him not. Rhythm lost, come swaving. My prostate or palmetto, you're 16 again. A carpenter bee or power drill, but prostrate, my sphincter tense, fights, insist. Brown-chested robins perspire, rush, mosquito flounce, pounce, it's a lie, excited, to suck the spores out of thee, and yet we flip the same species, and oh, mossy, 7 micrometers tower, you are stranger, yet nature, floorless, AC, whir, aeroplane, contrail, we fake clean, so well, negative drives, knees ache, you swell, thicker at the base, intoxicated, we keep on, pound a new orifice into orifice, moss and I, and you and moss, and we are a townhome 470 million years ago. We climb out the swamp, drenched in moss sperm, into a moist corner, masked. My mask, enough, only, insect, sex, this sex, moss, brown, and subtropical crawls up stucco or stuck to rot. Wood, my own thighs, your chest, hair, a carpet of moss. I burrowed deep, wood and wood and wood till your completion, no recip. What lies? Yay, hooks. Okay, and here's the last one. This one's longer. So I led last year on the advice of my friend Kimberly Eludio, Swampspy and Hooks collide together, and they produced a new manuscript that's called The Everywild. And I also just want to say to all the folks here who can publish people, Aliah has a chapbook but no book. Irene, I think, has a chapbook but no book. Lupe just talked about their Huelga Schools book. I've got a book. I would love to see Miriam's book. There's something about Houston poets here today where like we just don't have books. So many books. We could have more books. So since we're reading in New York, hi, all of us, because Houston's amazing. All the books for everyone. Okay, this is my last poem. A note on we. Over a long term, there comes to be a we. We comes to enforce certain grammatical patterns, bodies to fit semantically into a series of weeks and months. Call that we a family, or couple, partners, lovers, leaves, siblings, hooks, friends, readers, weeks and months become years and generations, and continually subject, verbs, object, subject, verbs, object, subject, verbs, object, subject, verbs, object. And long term is a series of sentences where the subject becomes fixed, along with its verbs and objects. And a family tree is a series of lines to fix the subjects into an arboreal we that verbs its objects. We becomes a series of sentences strung together, where the one only makes sense because the one before has preceded one. We thinks one understands, even as we doesn't. I was born here, but grew up elsewhere, for example. Grammar is a structure like a sapling in need of continual unrooting to set down roots. The shepherd's hand massages soil, so aeration allows growth, and unrooting is a story told or untold, well folded. An undercut is surgical, fleshy, undermining, toppling. So this is not a memoir. We is dealing with official knowledge, absorbs aspects. She asked, but how to do that without it getting more oxygen than it has already taken? And because we so deeply imagines how the upcoming sentences will play out, we knows or we outstretches narratives into past and future. Should we resist an idea, stories that must be told, the seduction of stories, storytelling to undo the dominant story told, or we undone? M. Nurbasi Philip, only in not telling can the story be told. How does we let each member be one? We asks ourselves, how do we imagine every day to render ourselves surprising, present? Also as in gift, a present. How does we let our sentences renew, recreate, and we generations and generations lay interwoven under sheets, stained, covered with comes, plural, and that other foreign language that makes this language foreign, also something unknown and pleasant, and some of that energy arrives to previous phrase, comes on, we, begonia. We insist on speaking other tongues across boundaries, old new tongues entirely. We find ways to support a move into old new grammars, piece together alternate clauses out of old new alphabets and sketch characters. What can be fabricated out of this, something unknown and pleasant, of this, what is known already, or the languages in which already, or this between language that is, as they all say, you both talk exactly the same. You the same as your great-great-grand matriarch and your gay lover and your sister. History is continually made to be coherent, but present, this rupture, the constant disturbance of timeline, a repetition of circles. What has we come looking for? A hookup, a lick, an apology, an impossible expungement? And it's true how phrases have interlaced, but still there are those times when we slips. What does we make of this something unknown or misknown and pleasing, of this what we knows, or the tongues in which already we has moved, those mounds, Gulf Coast oyster mounds fabricated into modernist concrete, refabricated by Jamal Cyrus into a triangle paired with sargassum laid on the floor. Difficult to know what is our MO, or where one narrative ends and the other begins, where to place the comma, or how to add 3 spaces there. A red wolf in Galveston became a canid because we has come together. We has provided an array of options that we is always looking at. But now that we is not in the same common place, we stops or pauses, or we tries out old new grammatical shifts learned from other lovers, other town squares or histories that fallen branch, other syntactical structures or variances to enliven dead-end sentences, lines, branches, not always just go, 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 go on to the next note, not. We finds a ritual to pressurize the moment, or we is constantly pulling things or thinking the pulls. She asks, how do you not make something that's just a clever queer version of a space they already know? We constantly things the pulls in new ways. Some things someone said during the day become hooks for we. Your adventures are mine. We likes how it makes our structures public, our slip-ups. Life is not a series of line breaks or fragments, or it is about narratives as joinings of clauses into sentences, a string of sometimes independent, but more often subordinate clauses. Subordinated look to find a way to join up, and the struggle to do so, and how the run-ons keep on running on. Dependent narratives intertwine, so quite obviously it does not make sense to suddenly make just one moment the way that hooks are one moment, or no, sense is the least important thing. Stress in English is not natural, she says, and not like the thump, thump, thump of your heart, bassoon, 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 contrabassoon, contrabassoon, contrabassoon. The indeterminate we has made a way to string sentences, to take a subject and verb it, and then object, 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 our way into another verb, the way things unfit, thing-gether, always askew. Old new structures allow new old structures to lean, collapse, relax. We breathe in an old new way, are coming together. Object, verb, subject, verb, objects, subject, verb, objects, subject, object, subjects, verb, all of we. all of we endlessly comes. Thank you.
Thank you, JD. Our final reader is going to be Aliah Lavonne Tigh, who's the author of Weren't We Natural Swimmers, a 2022 chapbook with Tram Editions that is out now. Her poems have appeared in Guernica, the Texas Review, Matter Monthly, The Rupture, and others. She has degrees in poetry and philosophy from the University of Houston and an MFA from Antioch, Los Angeles. Tigh lives in Houston, Texas, and you can find her on Twitter at @ALoveTigh. Please welcome Aliah to the rail.
Hey, I am so honored to be in this company of poets and artists. And my spirit cup, or whatever we call it, I don't know, mixed metaphor, is definitely, I'm definitely feel really inspired and grateful. Yeah. So my name's Aliah Lavonne Tigh, and I'm going to read, let's read. I'm going to begin with Love, American Made, Your Toy Owed Us. Your love is a wet risk highway across the Midwest. You're unfolding your body, a road hungry, under a frontierish horizon. You still prefer the sober lovers with their foreign motors, but hate the smell of oil. You know how I'd let you ride, dance beneath my metal. I'd drive all over you, but this hurts me too much. The swell and curl of your nostrils and hate. You hate the smell of oil. Well, any love is a wet risk, a gamble ending in the spin out or slip. The heart I hide behind the hood, easily, always speeding hot, too easily interstated. Lying down in front of me, you say, use my hard miles of concrete to run away. I'm bigger than your Middle East, than your deeper South. Well, I know when I hear an engine idling. You say, now, won't you ride my good 1,000 country miles for you exploding so orange bright with interstate lights? Me under your moving body, I could make you a vehicle so full of light, oh, beneath. Feel this longing, exploding so. Oh, no, I prefer the pavement rising under me, unlit, so lonely, as if a province explored first by my own dark hands and the Milky Way. Baby, I will always wear your hate, the smell of oil. So Houston is a coastal city, it's below sea level, and our land helps get the water from the rest of the state and above us to the ocean. And what does this is bayous. And so to develop Houston, someone had the idea that they should dam it up, literal dams. And during Harvey, there was so much water that they had to release water from the dams onto communities. And something I do want to say is because so many of my other readers are Houstonians, we're here, we're safe, you know, feel your bones, breathe. I feel kind of self-conscious or care because of some of the poems. A dam is a form of failed diplomacy. In my father's house, floods took the kitchen. Still, he welcomes you to any of the other rooms. Hospitality lives inside us. Overseas, a cancer eats my uncle's bones. He doesn't know what his body grows. No voice but pain speaks to the host. My aunt, nieces, and nephews hope for cancer drugs in Iran. This is what sanctions means. Here, someone sanctioned the sale of a floodplain. Barker's Dam could not protect these families downstream. In this development, who among us now would not pray against rain or not ask that a loved one can board a plane? We are all the person we become once watching water fill someone's room. Come in, see, all this drywall's new. I stand here painting small squares in likable shades of blue. Drowning in the atrium of this church, I struggle to worship. I should have let FEMA pay for this room. Dragging my suitcase down the hotel's hall, I walk next to her, saying again, baby, I am going to love you. But by the bed, a burgundy armchair, when I sit, I feel alone, myself, in cold water soon. Facing the window, I watch the sun sink behind a stage of pine trees. Dusk pours over the thin forest. The parking lot drifts through the window and into this room, our new aquarium. Dusk is slipping in, a sunset in my head, a fire licking up the soft sheets of our turned down bed. During check-in, I said, thank you to the clerk watching us. What do you know? What do I? Did I not ask for this? Single queen suite facing south and the trees. Now my love won't fill the ice bucket. She wants to touch me. Her hands hit an invisible wall. She's touching someone else and I'm hidden behind that person and small. And then I cannot come about sacred things we promised to never lie. Her finger slides inside me and oh God, I reach until we wear each other like perfect rings. Always I keep praying to some divine. I ask for more than our room key, hot water, some future home higher than the sea. This is the book. It's available through Tram Editions. Body under another's tradition. Everyone in anatomy pairs up, receives a small baby pig. The scalpel shines like water or a mirror. If you look, you see yourself. A gloved hand pushing a blade to open the other animal's chest. Someone drops a knife, shouts, clean it up. This is how we learn to dissect a body, death or the emerging parts, discoveries we bag and hide in a drawer after class. I go to the rooftop. On so many parking garages, I've waited, seeing treetops, oceans, and coral clouds. Once ultimately alone, isn't it a miracle? The beauty our eyes can unhide. With my hands, I've educated and hurt so many things, and myself survived. We animals hover over a stranger animal, and who interrupts what wants to touch us? Water licks the edges of bayous, bays, gulfs, then rivers, some with bluffs, but in this town, only unbluffed shores. It rises in the streets, creeps close to the door outside, waters pouring out like a pinion everywhere for as long as we're alive. Neighbor, if you had no land, how long could you swim until you died? Memory is a power line dropped in this water some will never swim. Bayous as metaphors, arteries for our city once soaked with 60 inches, we wore them around our body, bayous swelling into heavy, hungry ropes. We pretend to forget, let our hearts inflate, rainbow covered inner tubes of hope. See schools of us bobbing now, a million neighbors float towards forgetting. In a public wave pool, we cope. A coastal city builds attics over basements. The future is hidden in our memory. A house full of water, a body trapped beneath the roof without an axe. I feel like we need to switch up the. Let's do. Where the unwanted is removed or purified. The refinery's burning itself now. A long dark arm in the sky throws a hazy net over Houston. This city where we met, a swampland. We've learned to muck out. Flooded rooms, we tear through the floors, our crowbars covered in clayish sand. Still, Spanish moss hangs in Yupon holly trees. Red berries grow for the migrating waxwings. Stand with me between live oak hips. Eastern swallowtails fly in the ash particulate, beat their black wings against wild salvia lips. We're going to see some natural beauty, bayou all around us. We're going to unbury ourselves. I'm going to read a new poem and then maybe one other unless I'm time over. And then if I'm time over, this will be my last. And this should maybe come into your inboxes later this year. Pathogenesis. Sea of strangers exhales. Something natural reorders us without consent. We reorder the coastline, my therapist. What do you feel in your stomach, in your chest? I feel nothing. Nothing matters. I touch nothing. I'm angry. Stop asking. Have you ever stood on a shore, felt the water changing heights, felt the wet sand rush to squeeze your legs too tight? In each of us, possibility, a knife wedged under the mattress, a new strangeness, an undiscovered way we could touch each other, a bird never heard before, singing an untaken path or Genesis. I think that probably is at 10 minutes, right?
I think you can read one more.
Okay, the last one is called The Future High Island, and it's actually the close of the book. Salt domes raise the earth east of Galveston to the thrust of oil, well, arms, ghost live oaks. Through these wetlands, the railroad ran but didn't survive. A ghazal is a couple paired even if a reader refuses to hear how our bodies rhymed. Banana spiders weave a home above me between roping vines. Studying their sharp legs, I try to hope and find the water by following the cormorants' deep croaks. They gather, happily marooned, on the pond's only island. Rosette spoonbills nest up in the naked branches of short trees. The future, an island in the middle of carnivorous water, could be iridescent, surfacing, alone, oil-throated. I cannot hear my own desire well. How long? Until the last remaining ovary, aviary dies. Two scissor tails perched on a power line watch me drive away from the rookery. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aliah. And thank you, Lupe, JD, Irene, and Maryam. Thanks so much. This was really amazing. And Maryam, thank you for bringing everybody together. And thanks to everyone who's been listening along and commenting very extensively. Great outpourings of affection in the chat. And I think now's the moment where we throw the mics open and unmute everybody and say hello and goodbye as we move on into the day. Probably a little changed. Can we do that?
Thank you all so much.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone.
everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, JD.
Thank you, Aliah. Thank you, Irene.
Thank you, Maryam.
That was so
Thank you, JD. For the
Thank you,
beautiful-
everyone. Thank you, everyone.
That was really incredible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ansem. It was just what we needed. It feels super nurture. Thank you. Please keep up and send the link about the new books. We would like to buy all the new books for our collection also. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Aliah.
Thank you, everybody.
JD. Thank you, Ansem and Marianne. Yes, keep up the good work. With love and courage, you all.
Take
Thank
care,
you,
everyone.
Mariam.
Bye.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Thank you, Fong. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.